Please turn off your cell phone for the performance. And the show contains some homoerotic undertones. So if you're not okay with that, please kindly ask the person next to you to slap you gently.
Did you hear what I was singing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry for that, for your sake. I don't sing accurately. Anyone can sing accurately, but I sing with wonderful expression.
Yes, sir.
Have you got the cucumber sandwiches prepared for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, and by the way, Lane, I see from your books that on Thursday night, when Lord Sherman and Mr. Worthing went dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience with it myself up until the present. I have only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
Not sure I'm much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax.
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure. What else would bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring. Hello? Why, all these cuts? Why, cucumber sandwiches? Why, such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, really, Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that's all very well, but I'm afraid that Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolen. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
Oh, you said you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
No doubt about that, my dear Algie.
Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
You've been eating them all the time.
That is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. That's my bread and butter. The bread and butter, that's for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is the bone of the bread and butter.
Very good bread and butter it is.
You need not eat it as if you were going to eat it all. You behave as if you're married to her already. If you're not married to her already, I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
But that is nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you shall have to clear up the whole question with Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean by Cecily? What do you mean out by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say you have had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you had said something. I have been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
But there is no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest. But it makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the estate isn't yours at all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. And you've no right to read what was written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
It's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
It's quite contrary to fact, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, this is your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone by the name of Cecily, and you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady. She has 2 lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
Yes. But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt who lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with the fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. It is surely a matter that an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. Just give it back to me, Algie.
Yes. But why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There's no objection, I bet, to an aunt being a small aunt, but no matter why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle. I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it is Earnest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You have always told me it was Earnest. I've introduced you to everyone as Earnest. You look as if your name was Earnest. You are the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It's perfectly absurd saying your name isn't Earnest. It's on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Earnest, if you ever attempt to deny it to me or to Gwendolen or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come on, boy, you much better have the thing out at once.
My dear fellow, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It's very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
That is exactly what dentists always do. Now, go on, tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I've always suspected you of being a secret and confirmed Bunburyist. Now I'm quite sure of it.
Bunburyist? What on earth is a Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me as to why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation and pray make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle from motives of respect you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You're not going to be invited.
Go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear boy, I'm not sure you're going to be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one must adopt a high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. In order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother named Ernest who lives at the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest in order that you might be able to come up to town whenever you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury in order that I might be able to go down into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinarily bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's. Well, really, I've been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know. You're absurdly careless about sending out invitations. Very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You would much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. In the first place, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. And secondly, she will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. Oh, it looks so bad. Just simply washing one's own clean linen in public. Besides, now that I raised me in Bunbury's. I want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too much interested in him as rather raw. So I'm going to get rid of Earnest, and I strongly advise you to do the same with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to be extremely problematic, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes in order that you can have an opportunity of proposing, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
You must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about ideas. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I know that you're behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well.
Well, those are not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely ever go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart, aren't I, Mr. Worthy?
You'll be quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. That would leave no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Algernon. I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I've not been there since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I will have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolen, won't you come and sit here?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable right now.
Good heavens! Name! Where are the cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them especially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers!
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
That will do, lady. Thank you. Greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had crumpets with dear Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its color, though from what cause I, of course, cannot say. Thank you. I'm quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch her.
Oh, I'm afraid I'm going to have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I should hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a great war, and I would hardly say a terrible disappointment. But the fact is, I have just had a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is quite ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to have curiously poor health.
Oh, yes. Poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury decides whether he is going to live or to die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. Nor do I at all approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, not that he takes much notice as far as any improvements in his ailments goes. So I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely upon you to arrange my music.
I'll speak to Bunbury if he's conscious, but I think I can promise that he'll be all right by Saturday. But the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen, and if one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the arrangements I've drawn up if you'll kindly accompany me into the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. It is very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. Gwendolen, you will accompany me!
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day has been Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else. That makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl that I've ever met. Since I met
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact, and I often wish that, in public at any rate, you'd been more demonstrative. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals, and my ideal has always been to love someone of the name Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen.
Passionate, eh?
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
But you don't mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest.
But your name is Earnest.
Supposing you said yes, do you really mean to say you couldn't love me then?
That's clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, there's very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life.
Well, personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care about the name of Earnest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
Suits you perfectly! It's rhyming, it has music of its own. It produces vibration.
Well, really, Gwendolen, I must say, I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, a charming name, for instance.
Jack. No, there's very little music in the name Jack, if any at all. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibration. I've known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity anyone who is married to a man called John. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolen, we must be married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing.
Well, surely, you know that I love you, and you've led me to believe that Fairfax were not entirely indifferent to me.
I adore you. But you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. The subject hasn't even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen!
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Of course, darling.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished? What, may I ask?
Mr. Worthing and I are engaged to be married, Mamma.
But you are not engaged to anybody. When you do become engaged, either I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly a matter she can be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have some questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below in the carriage. In the carriage, Gwendolen. You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. However, I am quite ready to enter your name should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who wishes to be married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it, And the balloon is gone. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in
In
investments?
investments, chiefly. I have a country house with some land attached to it, of course, about 1,500 acres.
A country house. You do have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen can hardly be expected to reside in a country.
I own one in Belgrave Square.
What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something, however, that could be easily altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I don't really know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said that I had lost my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, the old Mr. Thomas Cardew, a gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he had a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
Where did this charitable gentleman with a first-class ticket to a seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag!
A large black leather handbag with panels to it, an ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. Thomas Cardew find this ordinary handbag?
The cloakroom at Victoria Station.
The cloakroom in Victoria Station!
The Bracknell line.
The line is immaterial! Mr. Worthing, I feel bound to tell you that I feel bewildered by what you've just told me. To be born or at any rate bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to show a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life, which reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution, and I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, the cloakroom at a railway station may serve to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably been used for that purpose before now, and can hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolen's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I could produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room. Satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has this to do with me? You can hardly think that I and Lord Bracknell would allow our only daughter, a girl raised with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. For heaven's sake, stop throwing that gossip at you now, Chief.
Did it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolen refused you. I noticed the way she has.
Gwendolen is right. It's a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we're engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure the Lady Bracknell is one. I beg your pardon, my dear Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk that way about your own aunt before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge about how to live, nor the smallest instinct about when to die.
So, you don't think there's any chance of Gwendolen becoming like her mother in about 150 years? Do you, Algie?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased.
I'm sick to death of cleverness. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people these days. It's the thing is becoming an absolute
did you tell Gwendolen the truth about your poor brother, the profligate Earnest?
And before the end of the week, I shall have got rid of him. I'll say that he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You'd much better say a severe chill.
You're quite sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest is carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, that is all right. Cecily is not a silly romantic girl, I'm pleased to say. She takes long walks, has a capital appetite, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care that you never do. She's excessively pretty and she's only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolen that you have an excessively pretty ward who's only just 18?
Everyone doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolen are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that within half an hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they've called each other a lot of other things first. Now, if we want to get a good table at Willson, we really must go and dress. You know it is nearly 7.
It is always nearly 7.
I'm hungry.
I never knew you would do it.
Miss Fairfax?
Gwendolen, good heavens!
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolen? I don't think I can allow it.
Algie!
My own darling.
Ernest, from the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we may never be married. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, there is nothing she could possibly do that can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Darling Gwendolen.
The story of your romantic origin as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination to me. The simplicity of your character is exquisitely incomprehensible. Your town address in the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Wilton, Hertfordshire.
There's a good postal service there, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will take serious consideration. I will write to you daily.
My own darling.
How long do you remain in town?
To Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn round now.
Thanks.
You will allow me to finish my marriage, my own darling?
Certainly.
I will sort Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going Bunburying.
Yes, sir.
Shall probably not be back till Monday. You can put out all my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
That will do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There's a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so pleased about?
Just a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that's all.
If you don't take care, your friend Bunbury is going to get into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They're the only thing that are never serious.
What is nonsense? You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Cecily! Cecily! Surely such a utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is rather Morton's duty than yours. Especially at a moment when intellectual pleasures await you. When German grammar is on the table, pray open it at page 15. Repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. And I'm perfectly well adequate playing that much German.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German when he leaves for town.
Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Well, your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanor is especially to be commended in one so as comparatively young as he is. I know no one who has a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he always looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. You must remember his constant anxiety. That unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I know you said we would. You know German and geology and things of that sort influence a man very much.
Well, I can think that even I could produce any effect on a character that, by his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I do not think that I would desire to reclaim him. I am not in favor of this modern mania turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man, so shall he reap. Cecily, you must put your diary away at once. I do not see why you should have a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary we all carry around.
Yes, but usually chronicles things that have never happened and couldn't possibly happen. I believe memory is responsible for all those 3-volume novels the movies said.
Do not speak slightly of the 3-volume novel. I wrote one myself in younger days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happy. I don't like novels that end happy. They depress me so much.
But Cecily, the good ended happily and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. Was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was unfortunately abandoned. Lost. To your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming across to the
Dr. Chasuble! Indeed, a pleasure.
And how are we this morning, Miss Prism? You are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her much good to have a short stroll with you through the park, Dr. Johnson.
Cecily, I've not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German when the rector walked in.
I hope, Miss Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Mr. White, I suppose he's not returned from town yet?
We do not expect him until Monday afternoon.
Yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment. That's why all accounts of an fortunate young man his brother seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor!
A glass illusion merely drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both no doubt at evensong.
I think, dearest Doctor, I will have a stroll with you, in fact. It seems I have a headache after all, but a walk might do it.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. Perhaps we'll go as far as the school.
Oh, that would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It's somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic problems have the melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy, horrid geology, horrid German!
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, before behind. Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he wanted to speak to you in private.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come out here. And I suppose you had better talk to a housekeeper better really with him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met a really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so very afraid that we'll look just like everyone else.
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother. My cousin Earnest. My wicked cousin Earnest.
I'm not really all that wicked at all, Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you certainly have been deceiving us all in your most inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked but being really good all along. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, I suppose I have been rather reckless.
Ridiculous.
In fact, now that you mention it, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud that your life short must have been very pleasant.
It's much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you were here at all. Uncle Jack is not supposed to return until Monday afternoon.
That's a great shame. I'm obliged to go up by the first train on Monday morning.
I think you'd better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he is anxious to talk to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
Your emigrating. He's sending you to Australia.
Australia. I'd sooner die.
But you said it in almost like that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, the accounts I've received of the next world in Australia are not particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission this afternoon if you don't mind.
I'm afraid I'm not telling this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
That is because I'm hungry.
I thought of something. I should have remembered that everyone is going to eat in Italian New Life. One of life's regular and wholesome meals. Please, don't you?
Thanks. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Marechaussee?
No. I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think that you should talk to me like that. Miss Prism never talks to me like that.
And Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
But Miss Prism says all good looks are a snare.
They're a snare that every sensible man should like to be caught in.
I don't think I should like to catch a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about.
The priesthood, as well as the practice of the primitive church, was distinctly against matrimony.
Oh, that is obviously the reason why the primitive church hasn't lasted up until the present day. You do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
Well, no married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often I've been told not even to her.
That, dear doctor, depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulture. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. Alas. Where is Cecily?
Boldness to the schools.
Mr. Worthing.
Mr. Worthing.
This is indeed a surprise. We did not expect you till Monday afternoon.
I've returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you're aware.
Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
Why, brother?
More shameful debts and extravagance.
Still leading as a life of pleasure?
Dead!
Ernest, dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him! I suggest he'll profit by it.
Dear, I offer myself sincerely. You have at least the consolation of knowing you are always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
A man so shall he reap.
Dear Miss Prism Charity, and none of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to draughts. Will the burial take place here?
No, he seems to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
Paris? I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the matter in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, as in the present case, distressing. I should add, harvest celebrations, on christenings, and confirmations, days of humiliation, and on festal days.
That reminds me. You mentioned christenings, I think. I suppose you know how to christen, all right? That is, of course, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in the parish. I have often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant, Mr. Worthing, in whom you are interested? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried.
Oh, yes.
Those who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child, dear Dr. Chasuble. No, the fact is I would like to be christened myself this afternoon if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it. Of course, I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. At what hour would you like the ceremony performed?
We might talk around about 5 if that would suit you.
That would be admirably. I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time.
Oh. I don't see much fun in being christened along with other babies. It would be childish. What half past 5?
Perfectly. And now, Mr. Worthing, I will intrude no longer into a house of sorrow. I would really beg you not to be too much about our grief. What seem to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
It seems to me to be a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Good Jack! What horrid clothes you've got on. Joke and chase.
Cecily! What
What is the matter with you, Jack? Do look happy. You look as though you have a tooth, and I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is waiting in the next room? It's your brother! Brother Earnest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense, I haven't got a brother.
Don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I will go tell Earnest to come out here, and you will shake his hand. Won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
We've all been resigned to his loss. I find his sudden return to me to be peculiarly distressing.
I don't know what you call means. It seems to me to be perfectly absurd. Brother John, I have come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry for all the trouble I have caused you, that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down to be disgraceful. He knows perfectly well fine.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Vander, whom he goes to visit very often. And there must be much good in someone who's kind to an invalid, and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Harry has been talking to you about Bunbury, Andy.
He's told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury. Well, I won't have him talking to you about Bunbury or about anyone else. It is enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Of course, I admit that the faults were all on my side. I must say, I find Brother John's coldness towards me to be peculiarly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering this is the first time I have come here.
Uncle Jack, if you do not shake Ernest's hand, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, it is the last time I shall ever do it.
Oh, yay.
Pleasant as it not to see so perfect a reconciliation. I think we should leave these two brothers together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful act today, dear child.
Let us not be premature in our judgments.
But I feel very happy.
You young scoundrel! You must get out of this place at once. I don't allow any Bunbury in here.
I have placed Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that is all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I have packed it and placed it in the room next to yours.
His luggage!
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a very large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
I've been all in the dark after once. Mr. Earnest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I've not been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree. Well, Cecily is a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why on earth did you go over and change? It's perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who is actually staying with you for a whole week in your house as a guest. I call it grotesque.
You are not staying with me for a whole week, or as a guest, or as anything else. You've got to leave by the 4:05 train.
I certainly won't leave you so long as you're in mourning. It would be most unfriendly of me. If I were in mourning, you would stay with me, I suppose. I should think it very unkind if you did.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you're not too long. I never saw anybody take so long to dress and with such little result.
Well, at any rate, that is better than being always
overdressed as you are! If I'm occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being always mentally overeducated.
Your vanity is outrageous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you've got to leave by the 4:05 train, and I do hope we'll have a pleasant journey back to town. This thundering, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it has been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything.
I thought you were going to Jack.
She's gone to order the dog park for me.
Is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
It is always painful to part from someone who one's known for such a brief space of time.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Mary, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope I shall not offend you, Cecily, if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way visible personification, absolute perfection.
Your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you would allow me, I would copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
Oh, you mustn't. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. And when it appears in volume form, I hope you shall order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I've reached absolute perfection. You may go on. I'm quite ready for more. Don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
Don't think it is right that you should say that you love me. Wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily,
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew he was staying around until next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Uncle Jack. I don't care about anybody in the world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Of course. Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months.
Yes. It'll be exactly 3 months after Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you of course have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something. And I dare say it was foolish of me, but well, I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Charlie. And when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or another. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old tree here. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name. And this is the little bangle with the true lover's knot that I promised you always to wear.
Did I give you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. That's the excuse I've always given you for leading such a bad life. And here's the drawer in which I keep all of your letters.
My letters? But my own sweet Cecily, I have never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember all too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote always 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
I couldn't let you do that. They would make you far too conceited. They're so beautiful and so badly spelled that Even now I can hardly breathe without crying a little.
What a perfect angel you are.
There's still the question of your name.
Yes. Yes, of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it's always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone named Earnest.
There's something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence.
I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But my own love, do you mean to say you could not love me if I had some other name?
What other name?
Any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name Algernon.
Oh, sweet, lovely little darling. I really can't see why you should reject the name of Algernon. It is not at all a bad name. In fact, it is a rather aristocratic name. Half the chaps who get into the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you then. I might even admire your character, but I fear that I would be unable to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
You must see him at once on a most important christening. I mean, our most important business.
Oh,
I shan't be away for more than half an hour.
considering that we've been engaged for the last 3 months, that we've only met now for the first time, I feel it is rather hard that you should think me for so long a period as 30 minutes. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal to my time.
Miss Fairfax has just arrived to see Mr. Worthing, miss, on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Ask the young lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is short and very short. And you can bring tea.
Yes,
Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of the many good elderly women who are associated with some of Uncle Jeff's philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think they're so forward.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me we're going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
Oh, very nice of you to like me so much. After we've known each other for such a short amount of time. Pray sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure,
And you will call me Gwendolen, won't you?
if you wish.
Then that's all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
You're here on a short visit, I suppose.
No, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also?
Oh, no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your garden.
Yes, and Mr. Worthing's.
Oh, it is strange he never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I'm not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I'm very fond of you, Cecily. I've liked you ever since I met you. But I'm bound to state that now that I know that you're Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were, well, a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
Pray do. I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Earnest is the very soul of truth and honor, But even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influences of physical charms of others.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolen, but did you just say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it's not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It's his brother, his elder.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say that they've not been in good terms for a long time.
That counts for it. Now that I think of it, I've never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you've lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if any cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you're quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
Beg your pardon.
Dearest Gwendolen, I can think of no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the facts next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married. Yay!
My dear Cecily, I think there's some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
Dear Gwendolen, I'm afraid you must be under some misconception, for Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
Certainly very curious. For he asked me to meet his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train. I'm sorry, dear Cecily, this is a disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
Dearest Gwendolen, it would distress me more than I can tell you if it caused you any mental or physical anguish, but I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into a foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have got himself into, I will never reproach him for it after we are married.
You allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You're presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is no time for wearing a shallow mask of that. When I see a spade, I call it a spade!
That's when I had the opportunity of seeing a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual?
Yes! As usual, Mary.
Are there any interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes, a great many. From one at the top of the hills quite close, one gets in 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite well kept garden, this is Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I have no idea there are any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I can't understand how anybody manages to exist in the country. If anybody who's anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you, detestable girl.
Sugar.
No, thank you. Sugar's not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best of houses nowadays.
I'd love to, Miss Fairfax.
most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go, Miss Fairfax.
The moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I found you false and deceitful. I've never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No, not too many other calls to make in the neighborhood.
Darling, Gwendolen.
A moment. May I ask if you're engaged to be married to this young lady?
Dear little Cecily! Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some sort of misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present around your waist is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon.
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack!
Oh, yes, my own love. A moment first. May I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
What young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolen!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolen! I mean, to Gwendolen.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You
I felt there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrieff.
Algernon Moncrieff? Ow! I'm really called Algernon.
Cannot deny it.
Your name really, John.
I could deny it if I liked. I would deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wrong Gwendolen.
You will call me sister, won't you?
There is just one thing I would like to be allowed to ask my God.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there's just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Earnest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Earnest, so it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother Earnest is at present.
Gwendolen, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. This is the first time in my life that I've ever been reduced to such a painful position, and I am really quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother Earnest. I have no brother of any kind. I've never had a brother in my life, and I've certainly not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all.
None.
Have you never a brother of any kind?
Never, not even of any kind.
Cecily, I'm afraid it is quite clear that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture after us there.
No. Men are so cowardly, aren't they?
Ghastly state of things is what you call bunburying, I suppose. Yes, and a perfectly wonderful bunbury it is. The most wonderful bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, the only small satisfaction I have in the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to, my dear Algie, and a very good thing too.
Your brother is a little off-colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently me as your wicked custom was, not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say your taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defense at all for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I want to be engaged to Gwendolen, that is all. I love her.
But I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is certainly no chance of your marrying Miss Cardew.
Well, I don't think there's much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
But that is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It's very vulgar to talk about one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How you can sit there calmly eating muffins when we are in this horrible trouble I can't make out, seems to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cuffs. One must always eat muffins quite calmly. It's the only way to eat them.
When I say it's perfectly heartless, you're eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I'm in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At present, I'm eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way.
I wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens! There's a perfect memory for those muffins in the garden!
You just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was heartless of you under the circumstances. That is a very different thing.
Well, that's no be, but the muffins are the same. There are only two left. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Why on earth then do you allow tea cake to be served up for your guests, which I deem as no part of hospitality?
Algie, I wish to goodness you would go.
I haven't quite finished my tea yet. And there's still one muffin left.
The fact that they did not follow us into the house at once, as anyone else would have done, seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
I don't seem to notice this at all. Couldn't you cough?
What happened?
Jesus! What effrontery!
They're approaching. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly. It is the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing! Something very particular to you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolen, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrieff, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
Oh, well, That certainly seems like a satisfactory explanation.
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't, but that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his reply.
True. In matters of grave importance, it is style, not sincerity, that is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer me for pretending town brother? Was it in order that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest of doubts on the subject, but I intend to crush them. This is not the moment for German skepticism. Their explanations seem to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing. That seems to have a stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrieff. His voice alone inspires me with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forget that?
Yes, I mean, no.
True. There are principles at stake which one cannot surround them. Which of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
Excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time, please?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me, you're ready to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
Darling!
Darling!
Lady Bracknell!
Good heavens!
Gwendolen, what does this mean?
I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young, of physical weakness in the old. Apply, sir, my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin. I followed it once on a luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I am pleased to say, under the impression that she is attending a more than usually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence of a permanent income on thought. I do not propose to undeceive him. But of course, you must understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolen, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind. And now as regards Algernon. Algernon?
Yes, Augusta?
May I ask if this is the house in which your invalid friend Mr. Bunbury resides?
Oh, no, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Hey, when did he die? It must have been extremely sudden.
Oh yes, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, poor Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
He was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage?
My dear Aunt Augusta, I mean to say he was found out. The doctors found out that he could not live. That's what I mean. That's how Bunbury died.
He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I'm glad, however, that he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. Now that we have finally got rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask, Mr. Worthing, who that young person is whose hand my nephew Algernon is holding what seems to me to be a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Moncrieff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there is anything peculiarly exciting in this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that seem to go on here seem to be well above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, Is this Cardew at all connected with any of the larger railway stations in London? I didn't design information until yesterday. I had no idea that there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew, of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervais Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran Fifeshire NB.
That is not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspires confidence, even in tradesmen.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors have letters Markby, Markby, and Markby.
Markby, from of the highest position in their profession. Indeed, I'm told one of the Mr. Markbys is occasionally to be seen at dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
How extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and the English variety.
A lot crowded with incident, I see. Though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I am not in favor of premature experiences. Come, Gwendolen. The time approaches for our departure. We have not a moment to lose. Mr. Wilde, I had better ask if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000 in the funds. Miss Cardew seems to me to be a most attractive young lady, now that I really look at her. Few girls of the present day have any really solid qualities, any of the qualities which last and improve with time. We live, I regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Come over here, sweet child. Pretty child, your dress is sadly simple and your hair seems almost as nature might have left it, but we can soon alter all of that. A very experienced French maid can work wonders in a very brief span of time. I remember recommending one to a young lady in Lansing, and after 3 months her husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew.
Kindly turn around, sweet child. No, the side view is what I wanted. Yes, quite as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The 2 weak points of our age are its want of principle and its want of profile. The chin is worn a little higher here. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. It is worn just very high at present. There are distinct social possibilities in this
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl in the whole world. And I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you altogether, sir.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
And you may address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you altogether,
Thank you,
To speak frankly, I'm not in favor of long engagements. They give people the opportunity to learn one another's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but I'm afraid that this engagement is quite out of the question. I'm Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, may I even say, ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more do I desire?
It pains me very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew, but the fact is that I don't approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible!
I'm afraid there is no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house under the false pretense of being my brother. He then drank, I've just been informed by my butler, an entire pint bottle of my Perrier Jouet Brew 89, a wine I was specially reserving for myself. Continuing his disgraceful deception, he succeeded in the course of an afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he knew from the first that I have no brother, that I never had a brother, and that I have no intention of having a brother in the future, not even a
consideration, I have decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
How very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, remains unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Come here, sweet child. How old are you?
Well, I'm really only 18. I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
You are quite right in making some slight alteration. No woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. It seems so calculated. 18, but admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, it will not be long before you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So I do not think your guardian's consent is at all a matter of any importance.
Pray excuse me for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell, but it is only fair to tell you that, according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not come legally of age till she is 35.
What? That does not seem to me to be a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the highest birth, who of their own free choice have decided to remain 35 for years. Lady Doubleton is an instance in point. To my knowledge, she has remained 35 ever since reaching the age of 40, which was many years ago now. I see no reason why our dear Cecily should not even be more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Out! Would you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively. But I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I am not punctual myself. I know. But I do like punctuality in others. And waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
What is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrieff.
My dear Mr. Worthing, since Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait until she is 35, a remark which seems to me I'm bound to say to show a somewhat impatient nature, I would beg of you to reconsider.
Oh, my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter lies entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must know that what you propose is entirely out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny that I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, can choose for himself. Come, dear. We have missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more would expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
The christenings? Is not that somewhat premature?
These men expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he knew this were the way in which you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand then that there will be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think that as things are now, it would be of much practical value to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
I am grieved by your sentiments, Mr. Worthing. They savor the heretical views of the Anabaptists, views that I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. But as your present mood seems to be one peculiarly secular, I return to the church at once. I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism! Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way to join her.
Pray let me detain you for a moment. This matter may prove to be one of vital importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies, the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same woman. What position does she hold in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
In spite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She is nigh.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Adam. I've been waiting for you there for an hour.
years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator containing a baby of the male sex, and you never returned. A few weeks later, the perambulator was discovered at midnight standing by its own in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained a manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there. Prism! Where is that baby? Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame I do not know. I only wish that I did. Oh. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out of its perambulator. I had with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag, in which I intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction I had written during a few unoccupied hours. But in a moment of mental abstraction, for which I never can forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
Where you hold the handbag?
Oh, do not ask.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you put the handbag that contains that infant.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria! The Brighton line!
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolen, wait here for me.
If you're not too long, I will wait here for you all of my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect Dr. Chasuble. I need hardly tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They are hardly considered the thing. The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this the handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine. Here is the injury it received in the upsetting of the Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Here is the stain on the lining caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage, an incident that occurred in Leamington. Here on the lock are my initials. I'd forgotten that in a somewhat extravagant mood I had them placed there. This bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It's been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
More is restored to you than this handbag, Miss Prism. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes! Mother!
I am unmarried.
Unmarried? I do not deny that was a serious blow. After all, who are we to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell. I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid to say that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrieff, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother? I knew I had a brother! I always said I had a brother! Cecily, how could you Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolen, my unfortunate brother. Algy, you young scoundrel, you have got to treat me with more respect in the future. You have never behaved to me like a brother in all your life.
Well, not till today, old boy.
My own? But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become someone else?
Good heavens, I'd quite forgotten that point. Your position on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose.
I never change except in my affections.
Well, then the question had better be cleared up at once. Aunt Augusta, at the time when Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I have been christened, that settles that. Well, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Being the eldest, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at present remember the general's Christian name, but I have no doubt that he had one. He was strange, I'll admit, but only in later years, and that was a result of the Indian climate and marriage and indigestion and other things of the kind.
Algy, can't you recollect your father's name?
My dear boy, we were hardly ever on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
Well, his name would appear in the army lists of the period, I suppose, Aunt Augusta.
I have no doubt his name would appear in any military directory.
Well, the army lists of the last 40 years are here. His delightful record should have been my constant study. Generals. Malum, Maxbom, Bagley. What ghastly names they had. Marksby, Migsby, Mobbs, Moncrieff. Lieutenant, 1840. Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General. 1869. Christian names. Ernest John. I always told you my name was Earnest, didn't I, Gwendolen? I mean, it naturally is Earnest.
Yes, I recall that the general was called. I knew I had some reason for disliking the name.
Ernest, my own Ernest. I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolen, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can't, for I'm sure you want to change.
Oh, darling Gwendolen!
Letitia.
Frederick? At last!
Cecily! At last!
Gwendolen, at last!
You seem to me to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've just now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.
are all incredible. Just his comedic sensibilities are amazing, and he has trusted us, and given us incredible direction, and has dealt with so much crap behind the scenes, and we were never stressed when he was like falling apart. And he's just been like a guiding light and just really incredible this whole time. So we love you and thank you.
Great, seriously, that's really great.